So the first thing we'll tackle is asking like how, the concept of unconventional funding. So where do you get the first, like some money? And for people that come from the communities that we come from, it's really hard. We don't have lots of people that we can go to and ask for money, right? We can't go to an uncle, we can't go to a dad or a grandpa or somebody and say, can you give me $50,000 or $25,000 to start my own company? So the way I did it, just so you understand, the way I did it was, I was always an entrepreneur. So I was always hustling, I was always doing some type of business. My first business was in a tech space. It was building online platforms to teach kids just any lessons, and I did it with charter schools. And what I saw that was a very lucrative and started coming in, the money started coming in, but I decided to literally, and a lot of people made fun of me, but a lot of people said, don't move in with your parents. So I decided to move in with my parents. We were cramped. It was hard to be in there. It was real. But after a year, I was able to save about $10,000, right? And those $10,000 was able to allow me to start part-time doing my business. So I started doing it part-time and just hustling on the side. How did you do it, Lawrence? The first time you got money to start your company?
So I wasn't as responsible, and basically I used my loans from school, and instead of buying books for the year, I invested it into getting the product off the ground, getting engineering schematics, getting the design, basically making it look professional. And within a few months, people were starting to basically see what we were doing and thought it would take off, and so they wanted to jump in and basically invest in us before someone else.
So as you can see, it's like, yeah, maybe we don't come from money, maybe we don't have the money, but if we can start thinking outside the box and get creative of how you can either start saving money or get money from different places and put it aside. I think the hardest thing that was for me when I first started putting money aside was not going out or not spending money someplace else. And it's really thinking that one day I wanted to build something bigger. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I knew that I wanted to start some type of business. Eventually, when I went halfway with the company, meaning half part-time, and I have some of the money, then I started networking. So events, you're already doing the right thing by being here today, right? By meeting people here today and networking with people who are around here and asking them, what are they interested in? What are they looking for? Do they have any money? And at one point, you're gonna have to ask if they have any money.
Not be embarrassed, right?
Yes, and not be embarrassed to ask for the money. So I did go to a networking event, and I met somebody from Edison, so Edison International. And the first thing that I did was I started asking them, how do I apply for grants? How do I get to raise some money from them? And we built a relationship over time. It literally took me about 3 to 4 months to build a relationship. We applied for the grant, and we got about $15,000 to continue the nonprofit at the time. At that point, we were already working about 10 kids, and we were working out of Starbucks. And the reason we're working out of Starbucks was because we didn't have a space. This is like 6, 7 years ago. We didn't have a space at all, so we needed to make sure that we can prove our concept, and then people started investing in us. How did you do the second time? Because I know you were doing networking, and you were asking people and your friends, right?
Yeah, so the first round was basically talking to every single person I knew. Said, hey, I'm doing this 100%. There was no, equivocation. We're doing this. And so that was basically the word got out, and that's what was our first round. But it kind of just came to us the first time. Raised $100,000 from basically 2 rich guys out of Hawaii, and it was really easy. We had to take a kind of a bad deal. But at the second time, it was essentially through LinkedIn. And cause I really didn't know any venture capitalists. A lot of the people, who maybe come on stage or who would, typically be on stage say, oh yeah, I'm for diversity, this and that. But it's another thing to actually have a transactional conversation with someone about that. And so I just hit up investor after investor, call after call after call. And then finally I said, oh, investor X, who had shown some interest, who was up in San Francisco. I said, well, I'm gonna happen to be in town next week. Let's meet up for coffee. I literally just went to San Francisco just to meet him. He introduced us to basically his investor in his investment group, and basically a few months after that, we would raise our second round.
So can you talk, we talked about this before, can you talk a little bit about that component where you were telling your friends about the business that you were doing?
Right, because essentially I didn't know any investors when we were first raising our basically I put a little bit of money in, we were building the product, and then at that point, I was just telling everybody I knew, hey, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm working on, raising some funds, this is what I'm doing, literally just for months doing that. And because I didn't know who another person would know, even if I didn't know directly an investor, or even if the person I was talking to, I didn't know if they knew anyone. So just getting the word out, it really just kind of exponentially increases your likelihood of being able to find someone. Oh, I think I know someone who knows somebody. And essentially, the person who introduced us, it was a friend who knew a guy who worked for the eventual investors who we were able to raise our first fund from. So it was a pretty, divergent kind of, way to do it. But I feel like that's what you have to do, is really not be embarrassed about it, and you should tell everyone this is what we're doing and have a great idea to back it up, of course.
And then the third component, it's really trying to figure out how can you do this online as well, right? There's a lot of things that you can use, the crowdsourcing that you can use online, crowdfunding that you can use online to be able to do it. We both use different platforms to go to the next level. Like he mentioned, he used LinkedIn. Can you explain that the hustle behind being on LinkedIn all the time, trying to figure out who can give you money to get to that person that you met in San Francisco?
Essentially, I had a prepared kind of quick thing. Didn't want to make it too much like a pitch. It was kind of just like, hey, I know you do this. Hey, we're doing this. Let's jump on a call. And most people said no. And then for the one people you did meet, it actually turned out fantastic. I was able to make connections with a guy who worked for Coke, who then led me to kind of executives at Pernod Ricard, who are the second largest alcohol company in the world. And I was just literally from, hustling, sending probably, 100 direct messages on LinkedIn every single day. And it was over a course of maybe 6 months. So it was just LinkedIn in the morning, making a list. Okay, I hit up this person's, yellow's warm, et cetera, and just breaking it down and then just following up.
Yeah, for me, when I did the crowdfunding, so at one point when I had about $25,000 for the business, I wanted to go and raise $100,000. And what we did is when we went online and did a crowdfunding campaign. But a crowdfunding campaign, money just doesn't come in. You got to really work at making that money come through and people understanding that you are raising money and getting people excited. So I'll tell you the trick that I did. It was very simple. The campaign was happening. I wanted to raise $100,000, and I literally at one point I put in $5,000 myself, so people can really see that I was getting traction, or else people would have thought, oh, this doesn't matter. This guy doesn't know how to raise money. But as soon as I put those $5,000 in there myself, you could start seeing people putting in $50, $100, and people got excited. And then about a month into it, I got somebody else to put $5,000 in. And that got me to like $25,000. And people were like, oh my God, this is real. And it started growing and growing. And I got to the point that within about 3 months, we raised $100,000 to get the nonprofit going. And for nonprofit, it's tough to raise money. I think at the end of the day, we want you to remember is this: you got to ask everybody. At the end of the day, you just have to ask everybody. If you believe in your company, you have to ask anybody that you know. $10, $15, $50, $100, $200K. You have to ask everybody. The last thing I'll say is, we've been doing this for a very long time. By asking everybody, we just talked to the current price, the council member of CD9 and the mayor who was here a little bit earlier, and literally we asked, hey, can we get a building in the city? Right? I don't know how that works. I didn't know what was happening, but I asked, right? June 30th, we'll be opening up a building in South Central LA that is the first, it's the first tech hub. I mean, 3D printer, drones, people, startups going to be in there in South Central LA. And I think that we are people, black and browns, we can do it. We can do this. We just got to get out there and ask for that money and just not be ashamed of doing it. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.